start by understanding what a monopoly really is. In economics, a monopoly refers to a market structure where a single company or entity is the exclusive provider of a particular product or service. This means there are no close substitutes available and the monopolist essentially controls the entire market. Because of this, the company can set prices, influence supply, and often faces little to no competition. This unique position gives the monopolist significant power over consumers and the market as a whole. As we move forward, we'll explore how monopolies form and what sets them apart from other market structures. Monopolies have several defining features. First, there's only one seller in the market, which means consumers have no alternative sources for the product or service. Second, the monopolist has significant control over prices, often setting them higher than in competitive markets. Third, barriers to entry are high, making it difficult for new firms to enter and compete. These barriers can include high startup costs, legal restrictions, or control over essential resources. Understanding these features helps us see why monopolies can be so powerful and persistent in certain industries. Monopolies don't just appear overnight. They often form due to specific circumstances in the market. Sometimes a company develops a unique technology or product that no one else can offer. Other times, government regulations grant exclusive rights to a single provider, such as with utilities or patents. Control over vital resources like rare minerals or specialized knowledge can also lead to monopoly power. In each case, the result is the same. One firm dominates the market, making it hard for competitors to break in. Monopolies are considered natural because they arise from the nature of the industry itself. For example, industries that require massive infrastructure investments, like water supply or electricity, are often natural monopolies. It's simply not practical or efficient to have multiple companies building overlapping networks. In these cases, a single provider can serve the market more efficiently, but this also means regulation is often necessary to prevent abuse of power. Legal monopolies are created when governments grant exclusive rights to a company or organization. This is common in sectors like postal services, public transportation, or patented inventions. The idea is to encourage innovation or provide essential services efficiently. However, legal monopolies must be carefully managed to ensure they don't exploit their position at the expense of consumers. Barriers to entry are a key reason monopolies persist. These barriers can be economic, such as high startup costs or economies of scale that favor large firms. They can also be legal, like patents or licenses that prevent others from competing. Sometimes control over essential resources or distribution channels keeps new entrants out. The higher these barriers, the less likely it is that competitors will challenge the monopoly. One of the most significant aspects of a monopoly is its ability to set prices. Unlike firms in competitive markets, a monopolist doesn't have to worry about being undercut by rivals. This means they can often charge higher prices, maximizing their profits. However, there's a limit. If prices are set too high, consumers may reduce their purchases or seek alternatives, even if those alternatives are less convenient or desirable. Monopolies can have a big impact on consumers. With no competition, consumers often face higher prices and fewer choices. The monopolist may also have less incentive to improve quality or innovate, since customers have nowhere else to go. In some cases, this can lead to dissatisfaction and calls for government intervention to protect consumer interests. Economists often worry about the efficiency of monopolies. In theory, monopolies may produce less and charge more than firms in competitive markets. This can lead to what's called deadweight loss, where potential gains from trade are lost. In other words, both consumers and society as a whole may be worse off compared to a more competitive market. Interestingly, monopolies can sometimes drive innovation. When a company has exclusive rights like a patent, it may invest heavily in research and development, knowing it can reap the rewards. However, once the monopoly is established, the incentive to keep innovating may decrease since there's little threat from competitors. This balance between innovation and complacency is a key issue in monopoly markets. Real-world examples of monopolies help illustrate the concept. Classic cases include public utilities like electricity and water supply, where a single provider serves an entire region. In the tech world, companies with patented products or dominant platforms can also act as monopolies. Each example shows how monopoly power can shape markets and affect consumers. Looking back in history, we find famous monopolies like Standard Oil, and these companies controlled vast portions of their industries, influencing prices and supply. Over time, public concern about their power led to government action, including antitrust laws and the breakup of these giants. These cases highlight the ongoing tension between market power and public interest. It's important to compare monopoly markets with competitive ones. In competitive markets, many firms vie for customers, leading to lower prices, more choices, and greater innovation. In contrast, monopolies can limit these benefits, focusing on maximizing their own profits. Understanding these differences helps us appreciate why competition is often encouraged in economic policy. Because monopolies can wield so much power, governments often step in to regulate them. This can include setting price limits, monitoring quality, or even breaking up companies that abuse their dominance. The goal is to protect consumers and ensure markets remain fair and efficient. Regulation is especially important in natural monopolies, where competition isn't practical. Antitrust laws are designed to prevent monopolies from abusing their power. These laws prohibit practices like price fixing, collusion, and unfair barriers to entry. When companies violate these rules, governments can impose fines, require changes in business practices, or even break up the offending firms. Antitrust enforcement is a key tool for maintaining healthy competition. Monopolists often use unique pricing strategies to maximize profits. For example, they might practice price discrimination, charging different prices to different groups of consumers based on their willingness to pay. This allows the monopolist to capture more value from the market, but it can also raise fairness concerns. Understanding these strategies helps explain how monopolies operate in practice. Monopoly markets, consumer surplus. The difference between what consumers are willing to pay and what they actually pay often decreases. Higher prices and restricted output mean consumers get less value for their money. This loss of surplus is a key reason why economists often criticize monopolies and advocate for more competition. While consumers may lose out, monopolists often see an increase in producer surplus, the difference between what they receive for a product and their minimum acceptable price. By controlling the market, monopolists can capture more of the value created, boosting their profits. This shift in surplus from consumers to producers is a hallmark of monopoly markets. Deadweight loss is a key concept in monopoly analysis. It refers to the lost economic value that occurs when monopolies restrict output and raise prices. Some consumers who would have bought the product at a lower price are left out, and the market operates below its potential efficiency. This inefficiency is a major argument against allowing monopolies to persist unchecked. Monopolists must consider the price elasticity of demand when setting prices. If demand is inelastic, consumers are less sensitive to price changes, allowing the monopolist to raise prices without losing many sales. If demand is elastic, higher prices could lead to a significant drop in sales. Understanding elasticity helps monopolists optimize their pricing strategies. In a monopoly, the firm controls the entire supply of a product or service. This means they can decide how much to produce and when. By restricting supply, the monopolist can drive up prices and increase profits. However, this often comes at the expense of consumer welfare and overall market efficiency. Monopolist faces the entire market demand curve, unlike firms in competitive markets that are price takers. This gives the monopolist the ability to choose any point along the demand curve, balancing price and quantity to maximize profits. The relationship between demand and pricing is central to monopoly strategy. For monopolists, marginal revenue, the additional income from selling one more unit, is always less than the price. This is because to sell more, they must lower the price for all units sold. Understanding marginal revenue is crucial for monopolists when deciding how much to produce and at what price. Monopolists maximize profits by producing at the quantity where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. This is different from competitive markets where price equals marginal cost. By restricting output, monopolists can keep prices higher, but this also means less is produced than would be in a competitive market. Unlike firms in competitive markets, monopolists can earn long-run economic profits. High barriers to entry prevent new competitors from entering and eroding profits. This makes monopoly markets attractive for firms but can be problematic for consumers and the economy as a whole. In monopoly markets, consumer choice is often limited. With only one provider, consumers have little say over what products are available or how they're delivered. This lack of choice can lead to dissatisfaction and calls for more competition or regulation. Without competition, monopolists may have less incentive to maintain or improve product quality. Consumers can't easily switch to better alternatives, so the monopolist might cut costs or reduce service levels. This can lead to lower overall quality in monopoly markets compared to competitive ones. Monopolists may spend less on advertising than firms in competitive markets. With no rivals to compete against, there's less need to persuade consumers to choose their product. However, advertising can still play a role in maintaining the company's image or informing consumers about new features. Monopolists may invest in research and development, especially if they rely on innovation to maintain their market position. However, once their dominance is secure, the incentive to keep innovating can decrease. This dynamic affects how quickly new products and technologies reach the market. Monopolies can reduce overall social welfare by restricting output and raising prices. This means fewer people benefit from the product or service, and society as a whole may be worse off. Economists often argue that promoting competition or regulating monopolies is essential for maximizing social welfare. Public policy plays a crucial role in managing monopolies. Governments must balance the benefits of scale and efficiency with the risks of abuse and inefficiency. This can involve direct regulation, antitrust enforcement, or encouraging new entrants to increase competition. Monopolies aren't limited to local markets, they can also operate on a global scale. Large multinational companies may dominate entire industries worldwide, raising similar concerns about competition, pricing, and consumer welfare. International cooperation may be needed to address these challenges. Technology can both create and challenge monopolies. On one hand, new technologies can give firms a temporary monopoly through patents or unique innovations. On the other, technology can lower barriers to entry, enabling new competitors to disrupt established monopolies. Some monopolies benefit from network effects, where the value of a product increases as more people use it. This is common in technology platforms and social networks. Once a company achieves a critical mass of users, it becomes very difficult for competitors to catch up, reinforcing the monopoly's dominance. Price discrimination is a common strategy for monopolists. By charging different prices to different customers based on their willingness to pay, the monopolist can capture more consumer surplus. This can increase profits but may also raise concerns about fairness and access. Patents grant inventors exclusive rights to their creations for a limited time, creating a legal monopoly. This encourages innovation by allowing inventors to profit from their work. However, once the patent expires, competition can return, benefiting consumers with lower prices and more choices. In some cases, governments regulate the prices charged by monopolies, especially in essential services like utilities. Price caps can prevent monopolists from charging excessively high prices, protecting consumers while allowing the company to cover its costs and earn a reasonable profit. Sometimes, essential services are provided by government-owned monopolies. Public ownership can ensure universal access and prevent profit-driven exploitation. However, it also raises questions about efficiency and accountability, making effective management crucial. Consumer protection agencies play a vital role in monitoring monopolies. They investigate complaints, enforce regulations, and ensure that monopolists don't abuse their power. These agencies help maintain a fair balance between company profits and consumer rights. Overcoming monopoly power often requires lowering barriers to market entry. This can involve reducing regulatory hurdles, encouraging innovation, or supporting new businesses. By making it easier for competitors to enter, markets can become more dynamic and responsive to consumer needs. Monopolies are often cited as a cause of market failure where markets don't allocate resources efficiently. This can lead to higher prices, reduced output, and less innovation. Addressing market failure is a key goal of economic policy and regulation. The social costs of monopoly go beyond higher prices. Reduced innovation, lower quality, and less consumer choice can all harm society. Policymakers must weigh these costs against any potential benefits such as economies of scale or efficient service delivery. Dynamic efficiency refers to the ability of markets to innovate and adapt over time. Monopolies may initially drive innovation, but over time their lack of competition can slow progress. Encouraging dynamic efficiency is a major reason for promoting competition and regulating monopolies. Consumer advocacy groups play an important role in holding monopolies accountable. They raise awareness, lobby for stronger regulations, and help ensure that consumer interests are represented in policy decisions. Their efforts contribute to a more balanced and fair marketplace. Sum up, monopolies are a unique and powerful market structure with significant implications for consumers, businesses, and society. While they can drive innovation and efficiency in some cases, they often lead to higher prices, reduced choice, and potential market failures. Understanding how monopolies work, why they form, and how they're regulated is essential for anyone interested in economics or public policy. By promoting competition and effective regulation, we can help ensure markets serve the best interests of everyone.